What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It's HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video. Excuse me. I figured I'd do a movie review for you guys. I haven't done a movie review in a long time, but I figured this would be a review of a film that's fresh in my mind, and it's a newer film from this year that I just saw today, actually. Earlier today, depending on what time you're seeing this. And, of course, I am talking about, of course, the new horror film by James Wan called Malignant. Now, Malignant, like I said, it's the newer horror film from horror director James Wan, the brand new film of his. Excuse me for the cough, and my throat's a little scratchy and dry. I think I'm going to need a drink after I do this video. So bear with me. And but before I get onto the film itself, first off, James Wan as a director, I've always really enjoyed James Wan as a director. He's definitely one of my favorite current day horror directors. He's up there with like Mike Flanagan and a few other people that are good in the horror genre. And you can definitely tell when it's a James Wan film, like his style, his direction. And I've enjoyed a lot of James Wan's films. I really enjoyed the first Saw film. Really enjoyed Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon. That's a great one. I love the first two Conjuring films that he directed. I really enjoyed Aquaman. Really enjoyed the first Insidious movie. And Dead Silence I don't really remember too much about. I remember liking it, but I haven't seen it in forever. So I'm going to have to rewatch that again at some point. And I think James Wan did a good job, too, with Furious 7. But when I mainly talk about James Wan's horror filmography, like I really enjoyed Saw, The Conjuring 1 and 2, Insidious, things like that. I really do enjoy James Wan's work in horror. And he really knows what to do when it comes to horror films. Now, getting on to his new film, Malignant. I will say this about Malignant. This is probably... And this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I will give you that announcement that this is going to be a spoiler-free, no spoilers. Now, there's not too much marketing of this film. Not really a whole lot of marketing is being done with this film, which was kind of shocking to me, because you figure for a James Wan horror film, you would think it would get more publicity, because you figure The Conjuring 1 and 2 were ginormous hits. Insidious was a big hit. Even the first Saw was a big hit for James Wan. So you would think, like, for James Wan, you know, for a big horror director, you think this would be a lot more out there, more advertised. And now that because the only times I ever really saw, like, ads for this film was, like, just like a little couple small clips of like maybe like 5 seconds or something like that, very brief clips. I did not see any trailers for this. I will admit, I did not see any full-length trailers for this. I went into this kind of cold turkey. And now that I watched the film for myself, I can definitely see why this is so sort of hush-hush when it comes to marketing for this film. Because if you watch the, like, whatever clips or whatever advertisements you saw of this film, it can be very... The advertising for this film is very kind of misleading in a way. Because what the clips that I saw, like, and this is not spoiling anything or anything like that, because this is what I saw, and based on the clips that I saw that was advertising for the film, I was mainly seeing, like, you know, the scene where the woman's holding the door shut, and then this force of... I guess, like, this supernatural force pushes the door open. I really thought it was going to be a can't speak right. A full-fledged, like, full-length supernatural ghost story. And I thought it was going to be kind of like another sort of, like, Conjuring movie or Insidious, where it's going to be, like, a supernatural sort of, like, ghost movie. And there are elements of that in the film. There are elements of it, not fully, though. When you watch this film, for me, when I saw this is really a slasher movie. And when I say slasher, and when I'm saying that, and based on like the twist that I saw and things like that and the concept, I can definitely say this is probably the most unique slasher film I think I've ever seen in horror film history. For me personally, this is really James Wan's visual version, or like version, I guess you would say, of a slasher movie. Because you figure James Wan, when it comes to horror, he did, torture horror, like with Saw. He did supernatural stuff with, The Conjuring and like the devil, and ghost movies, like even the Insidious, things like that. And I really thought that was going to be the case with this going into this film. It was going to be another ghost story, supernatural, sort of like in the vein of The Conjuring, and it's not. It's got elements of that, but it's a slasher movie, which I think is so freaking cool. Now, if you're going into this expecting a full-fledged ghost story movie, you're going to be very disappointed. But even though there are elements in it, but if you're a slasher fan, kind of like myself, you are definitely in for a treat if you go in to see this film for Malignant. Now, to give a little brief synopsis of the story without spoiling anything, you have this woman named I think Madison, played by Annabelle Wallace or something like that. I don't remember her name exactly. I think that's her name, but she was the main female in Annabelle. She was the main female in the Tom Cruise Mummy, and I think she was in the movie Tag as well. She's been in other stuff too. She plays a woman who's had a lot of miscarriages of children, and there's a reasoning for that behind that, but that would get into spoiler territory, and I'm not going to say it, but there's a reason why she's having so many miscarriages. And at the same time, there is this killer that goes by the name of Gabriel. And basically what this film is that this killer is going around killing people. And when these murders occur, she's seeing it before her very eyes. Like, she's seeing everything. Even though she's not near wherever the murders are at, whenever a murder occurs, she sees it, like, in her eyes. But when then it's like all of a sudden it's not there. Like, she's like seeing it in her mind. And there's a reasoning why she's able to see these murders happening before her very eyes, even though she's not near the murders. But once again, that kind of goes into spoiler territory, which I'm not going to get into. That's for you to find out when you go see the film. So that's why I'm trying to keep this review as much spoiler free as I can be. Now, it was cool to see other actors in here that I've recognized before. I forget her name, but I think it's Susanna Williams. She was Kevin Costner's wife in Dragonfly. She was in a lot of other stuff. And one of the other people in here that I recognized too was Jean Louisa Kelly. If you remember Uncle Buck, she was the oldest daughter in Uncle Buck. Remember, it was Gabby Hoffman as the little girl and Macaulay Culkin as the little boy. And then you had the oldest daughter, who was like a sort of moody teenager with her boyfriend, and that's Gina Louise Kelly, the older daughter from Uncle Buck. She has a role in this. And a brief small role by Zoe Bell as well, from Grindhouse and, Death Proof and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, and I really do say James Wan's visual of a slasher film is so well done. When this killer kills, I like the look at the killer of Gabriel. I think he has a creepy look to him. It's got some creepy images in it. Now, I know there's some criticism for the lack of scares, because I saw there was a lot of criticism for the lack of scares, and I will say it's got creepy stuff in it, but I wouldn't say it's to the creep factor of, say, The Conjuring 1 and 2 or Insidious, but it's got some creepy imagery in there, don't get me wrong, but it's just, it doesn't really come across as creepy as The Conjuring or Insidious, like that. Like, those are genuinely creepy, while this is kind of more of a slasher, and slashers don't really have creepy aspects to it, like scares. I mean, there are some to some degree, like the original Black Christmas or the original Chainsaw Massacre, but those are kind of more psychological slashers. This one is a full-on slasher film with bits of supernatural elements in it. And I tell you what, when I say slasher, they don't hold back on the blood and guts. I mean, and you can tell James Wan is a really big fan of different subgenres of horror. Like, he really does a good job with ghost movies, and I think he did a good job of this too with a slasher film. It's bloody, it's R-rated. I thought the lead lady, I forget the actress's name. I think it's Annabelle Wall. I know it's something Wallace. I can't remember for sure, but she did a really good job as the lead. I thought the other cast members did a good job as well, and you can definitely tell it's a James Wan film because of the way James Wan directs the film. Like, you can tell by the camera angles, like it'll be panning from room to room, and the camera will be like up here and like panning through like this, and kind of like sort of like the camera angles you would see in like the Conjuring films. You can definitely tell when it's James Wan's direction. And another thing too with this film as well, I just think that one thing that could be a con for people in this film is the twist when you find out the connections as to why this lady is able to see the murders happening before her eyes, and why she's having the miscarriages and things like that. Like, I can see this twist dividing some people. It's either you go with it or you don't go with it. I, for one, am the one that do go with the twist. I thought the twist was actually pretty cool and very well done. And I think the way James Wan was able to tell the story more through that twist, I thought was very well done as well. And I will say, I would probably say this is in my favorites of the year for 2021. I really do enjoy this film quite a bit. I really had a good time with this film. I'll just run through the positives like really briefly again. I thought the acting was great, especially the lead lady. I really liked the aspect of having a slasher film, but having bits of supernatural elements. And the fact with the twist and all that stuff, that's why I'm saying it's probably the most original slasher film I think I've ever seen with this twist. It's bloody, it's R-rated, they don't hold back on the blood and guts. It definitely does not hold back on the R rating, that's for sure. Creepy images. I like the look at the killer, Gabriel. I thought the story was really interesting. You can definitely tell James Wan has a good sense of direction with this film, with a certain way he does certain shots. You can definitely tell it's his style. And overall, this is, like I said before, the marketing can be very misleading because it kind of makes it look like it's a full-fledged, ghost story or like supernatural horror film. And it's not. It's got bits of that in there, but it's more of a slasher film. And I think James Wan did a good job doing his take on slasher films. So if you're a slasher film fan, you are definitely in for a treat with Malignant. If you're a big fan of that subgenre of horror, you are definitely in for a surprise. And I think you're going to be really, really enjoying yourself watching this film. So I'm going to keep it at that. So thank you very much for watching my review for Malignant. Like I said, I try to keep it as spoiler-free as I could. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the film when you see it for yourself. And maybe this review, if you haven't heard about the film before, maybe this review will get you interested in it. So anyways, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.